Hey, my streaming sanctuary family, welcome back to Women on the Move Empowerment Sessions Season 4. I am your wonderful host, Alicia Massey, and you already know empowerment is ready. It is locked and loaded for today. And today it's about to get really personal for me. My guest today is not only my sister in Christ, but this is also my blood sister. Yes, this is my baby sister joining me um, in the sanctuary. I am definitely excited. Of all the guests that have joined me on this journey, this one definitely is at the top. My baby sister is a special person to me. There are a few people that I don't play about, and she is one of the people that I do not play about. Her or her family, my nieces, my nephews, her husband. But here's the truth about my sister. While I am the older sister, just by a few years, I have found that I have always looked up to her more times than I can count. My sister is a devoted wife. She's an incredible mother. She's a servant of the Lord. And like many of us, she's had to navigate through some real life trial and error and overcome some real life challenges. And what I love most is my sister didn't just go through these things of life, but she grew through them. So she found her path. She's continuing to find her path. She's continuing to find her voice. And I am just super elated that she was willing to come out of her comfort zone and join us here in the sanctuary. So today she's here to share her wisdom in her own right that's going to strengthen us in motherhood, strengthen us in marriage, and how to stay faithful to God through it all. So you already know I'm ready. This one is full of truth, it's full of growth, and of course, the empowerment that we need. So let's get ready. Come on and let's go.
Welcome to the streaming sanctuary, where the broken scrolling still carry, where the lonely find a family, every pixel hums with faith and love.
All right, so welcome in everybody, and as promised, I am here with Miss Deirdra Gaines, my baby sister. Yes, she is blessing us today. I'm so excited to have her join me in this conversation talking about overcoming. Deirdra, thank you for saying yes to the call. Thank you for saying yes to this assignment. I feel like you probably said yes because I am your sister, but but I don't know. That could have also meant that you could have told me no, no, girl, I ain't doing. Girl, no, I ain't doing that. Because you are my sister. I'm not doing it. But thank you for saying yes and joining me in this space to talk about overcoming. You
You're
excited?
welcome. Thank you for the invitation. Because you are my sister, I did say yes because I felt like I couldn't say no because then it would have been, well, why, girl? What you mean no? So I thought, let me just make this easy on the both of us. Yes, ma'am. I will do it.
Yeah, I probably would have asked why, but it probably it wouldn't have went past that. But I'm glad you did say yes. I know that, regardless of where it comes from, it's this is a task that carries a lot of weight. So I'm always humbled when I ask people to come and they do say yes. I'm always humbled by it because I've been on both sides of this equation. I've been on the side, now where I'm the one asking the questions, and I'm like,
Mm.
oh man, I don't know if they're gonna say yes. But then I've also been on the end where people have asked me to join. I'm like, oh man, I don't even know what I want to talk about. So I try to make it as easy as possible. But before we get into your story and the conversation, I do just want to take a minute to let our viewers know just a little bit about Deirdra. I do have some curated information that I want to share, because if it wasn't curated, then I would tell all of her business from the time that I was introduced to her when I was, what, 4 or 5 years old. Even though I
The
don't
whole
remember,
story.
right? Now, even though I don't remember all of those stories, I'm sure there are enough in our formative years that we could spend the next hour talking about. But just to kind of give you a little background about who Deirdra is, beyond being my sister, before encouraging others to hold on to their faith, Deirdra had to learn what it meant to hold on to God when life no longer looked like the promise that she believed in. She is a wife. She is a mother of four, my two nieces and my two nephews. I love them to the moon and back. Um, she is a servant leader at Cornerstone Church in Salisbury, North Carolina, our hometown. She's a full time senior service representative with Synchrony Financial. But beyond those titles, she is a woman whose faith has been tested in one of the most personal places, which is in her marriage. So, we're going to talk a little bit about that. But in a season marked by strain, disappointment, anger, and of course, we can go ahead and throw in that doubt, because that's going to come in with it. She found herself asking many questions that believers are afraid to say out loud, those questions that are considered taboo, like we shouldn't question God like this, and we feel like we shouldn't even feel like this. The way she describes it is she felt abandoned, she felt unheard and unsure. So there's question marks all around why God seemed silent when her struggles were echoing and growing even louder. All because the reason why this is, and I know a lot of people are going to resonate to this, ladies, is because the life she prayed for didn't match the life she was living. I'm praying for something and it's not manifesting itself. Yet, in the middle of this battle, in the middle of the story, in the middle of the journey, something shifted. Instead of measuring God by the circumstances, what she was going through, she returned back to the Word of God. She returned to His Word. She rediscovered His true character, who God really is. He's faithful, He's present, and He's still working even when the situation didn't seem like it was changing, or even when the situation was changing. And today, Deirdra is here, and she continues to share how faith can remain steady. That steady constant when expectations fall apart, and how trusting God looks different when the battle you prepared for becomes the battle you never expected. And I really like that because we prepare for one thing. I was just having a conversation earlier, and the old saying is, if you want to make God laugh, tell God your plan.
Plan. Hmm.
Tell God how you have everything planned out. And, there are a few prayers that people avoid, because if I pray a certain way, that means a certain battle is coming. And we try to have these pretty girl prayers, and pretty man prayers, but since this is women's empowerment, but we try to have these pretty lady prayers, these delicate prayers with these white cashmere gloves on, thinking that that is saving us for something, or preparing us for something, or making us exempt for something, when all the while God is trying to get us to go deeper. He's trying to get us to go into the trenches and understand, like you said, like who God really is God showing you who you are, but it's like, I want to show you who I am. I want to show you how vast I am. I want to come into your situation, and I want to show myself strong. So, Deirdra, thank you, girl, for being here. I'm ready to start this
I mean,
conversation. I mean, it's so much. It's so much that we could just pull from the introduction, like without even understanding the story. I'm sure, just listening to the introduction, so many people can already resonate to what you said. Like, when you praying for something, the life that you prayed for is not matching the life that you're living.
Mhm.
How does this work? I'm praying for something, but it's not the life that I prayed for. How does this work when the battle that I thought I was preparing for, the battle that I mentally prepared for, is not the battle that God is preparing me for spiritually? This is not the battle that I expected. So I want to open it up because I want you to shed some light, because you talked about the faith where, well, one of the areas where your faith was really tested the most, and it was a personal place for you, was in your marriage. So can you describe the challenge in that area, how you had to overcome it, how did it test your faith? Just set the scene for us.
Saying, so, first thing that I was thinking about when you asked me to do this, and I was thinking about the area that was most, I guess, delicate to me, that was the most profound for me. When I think about my entire life, that was one of the most profound moments because just to kind of set the stage, me and my husband, we've been together 23 years. We've been married for
It's
12
been
of those
23
years.
years?
23 years.
Wow.
We've been married for 12 of those years. And at the time, we wasn't that long, but now we talk about it, and it's like I have been with my husband longer than I lived without my husband. I was 20
Mm,
years old when I met him. So when we're going through this, so you have to understand. So that means 11 years before we got married, we were just together.
mm,
Okay. So there were conversations, we talked about marriage. We talked about what we wanted our families to look like. And when I met my husband, I will be transparent and say, yeah, I knew God. I was a believer, but I wasn't rocking with God like I rock with God now. Okay.
okay.
So I wasn't regularly in attendance with church. I wasn't active with church. I wasn't really picking up. I knew God. I'm
Right.
like, yeah, me and God, cool, but we weren't it wasn't a relationship. It was like I knew of him, he knew of me, but it wasn't an intimate. I didn't have that intimacy with God.
Exactly.
So, my husband and I are dating, and somewhere along the line, I got hungry. Because you go to service and you have these church service, got hungry. And I think that's what really ignited my faith. Okay.
Mm,
Um, and so, I began to talk to my now husband, my boyfriend at the time, like, this is what I want to do. Like this, I feel like God is pulling me. And it was almost like a line in the sand, right? Because I'm like, this is where I'm going. I want you to come with me. But if you can't, this is where I leave you, kind of thing, right?
mm, mm-hmm.
Because, I'll go ahead and just put it out there. We were having premarital relations, right? We weren't supposed to be, but we were doing that. And that was something that I said, no, I can't do this anymore. I have to shut this down. Like I have to make myself separate. I have to try to set myself apart so God can do what he needs to do. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the start of like my being hungry for God and really activating my faith because again, I knew who he was, but I never leaned into his promises because I didn't have an understanding of truly who he was. I
Mm-hmm.
knew of God. Okay. So I'm gonna jump to my husband and I, we get married. Everything seems great. And of course, before we got married, we went through the counseling, like, you should do is
Mm-hmm.
encouraged, right? And then I prayed, God, is this my husband? Because even though it had been 11 years, it could have been 11 wasted years. Maybe God was going, this you weren't supposed to be with him all this time.
Mm-hmm.
So before we got married, okay, God, you sure? This one here, this guy right here. Like, yep, okay. And then I could see, God has, we all have dreams. We all have those, well, you probably have them and don't realize they're from God, but we have those dreams, we have those visions. And
Those
I know
wake
what
up
he showed
calls.
me. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what he showed me. And I'm like, okay. I saw my marriage. I saw the children we would have. I didn't have this all in one dream, understand. This was like over a period of months and time that God would just show me little pieces of the life he was preparing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm like, yeah, let's, we get married and immediately get pregnant. As you know, I know you joke 30 days after we got married, I'm about to have a baby. Okay. and stayed pregnant for the first three and a
Yeah,
half
and you kept
so
having
years
them.
of our okay, stayed pregnant. Um, and so
You was living out the definition of
we
being
was
fruitful and multiplying.
we was being married and loving it, okay? And having our babies. And so around the 4.5 to 5 year mark, shortly after my youngest son is born, we find ourselves talking about divorce.
Mm,
And it was a blow I didn't see coming.
mm,
It was just like it took the wind out of me.
mm-hmm.
Because one day I thought we were good.
Right.
And then the next day, we're not good. What
Mm,
what what happened? Um, so that shook me.
mm-hmm.
That shook my faith. Now, I have to be honest and say, most of the time when you're having a test of your faith, at least for me, I didn't recognize it as a test of my faith at the onset.
Right.
And when it started, it was just like, oh, well, what is this? So I didn't immediately run to God and say, okay, God, what is it? I was just like in my
Yeah.
fleshly kind of emotions took over. And so it was becoming, I'm upset with him. It was all directed towards my husband. I got questions for you. I'm angry with you. I don't understand what this is,
Right.
right? Um, and we found ourselves separated. So here I am, 4 kids, right at 5 years married, and we're talking about
Mm,
divorce.
mm.
What do you do with that?
Right. What do you
Like,
do
like,
with that?
what do you do with that? Um, so for weeks, it was him. I got questions for you. Why you do this? Why did this happen? I'm asking questions. And he's not giving me the answers that I
Right.
want.
Exactly.
And we had eventually, because I kept pushing. What is this? And we eventually had the biggest fight argument that we have ever had
Mm-hmm.
before or since. We have never had one that explosive since.
Mm,
And it was really, if I kind of bring this in, my husband was struggling and I didn't know it.
mm.
And I didn't see it. And I didn't recognize it.
Right.
So we're separated. So then we started doing the whole every other weekend with the kids thing, right? So I dropped the kids off one weekend and I'm in my house and I'm by myself. So for the first time in 5 years, I am utterly alone.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody, there's just me and God in
Mm-hmm.
the house. Nobody. And that's when I shifted to God. God, I'm upset with you.
Mm.
I'm angry. Because if you can show me, you promised this was my husband, this was my wife. You showed me what my life would be. This ain't it.
Right.
Why am I by myself now with and they were little babies. My youngest wasn't even a year old,
Mm-hmm.
and then the one before that was what 1.
Yeah.
Jess was 2, and then Jay was like 7, 6 or
Mm-hmm.
7, somewhere in there. So they were little kids. I mean, these are,
Mm-hmm.
I need a 2-parent household. These are small kids. Um, God, this is not what you showed me. This is not the marriage I prayed for. That's what I mean when I say it's not looking like
Mm-hmm.
what I prayed for. And it seemed like it was going to be, right? But this is not what I prayed for.
Mm.
Um, And I would love to tell you that it was like a quick turnaround that, okay, I prayed and then, okay,
Yeah.
wipe off my face. Okay,
Voila.
Lord, you said here we are.
Right.
This was months. My husband and I were separated for about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
6 months of by myself. But I was angry with God. I'm like, This isn't what you showed me. Where are you at?
Mhm.
Where were you when this started happening? Why didn't you warn me? These are like,
Right.
why didn't you warn me? And this is during the time now. Me and God, we was rocking. I was serving. I was on the altar ministry. I was praying. God. We ace coon boom now. Like I feel like you should have prepared me. You should have. I was upset, right? Like you should have showed me something.
Right.
This is not the business, as they say. Like what is this?
Right.
Um. So God really had to kind of break me down.
Mhm.
I am a fixer. I don't like to see people in pain. I don't like to see problems. If I can do something to make it better, if I can do something to fix it, I'm going to do it.
Mhm.
I'm going to do it. And in this season and in this situation, it was something I couldn't fix.
Right.
And God had to really break me down like, yeah, we are rocking together. We are cool. But you don't really trust me like I need you to trust me. And you don't let me have my way the way I need to have my way,
Mhm.
right? And he also had to let me know like this isn't totally about you. It
Right.
started with my husband. And I missed that my husband was in a struggle.
Mhm.
And because my husband was in a struggle, it started to affect our marriage. But I didn't recognize it.
Mhm.
Right? Because when it happened, it was all about me. Well, why did this happen to me? What did I do? How could you do this to me? Da-da-da. It was me, 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 me. I didn't recognize his struggle. So God has broke me down. And when you feel like you rocking with God, you cool with God, and God's telling you, you don't trust me.
Right.
You don't trust me like I need you to trust me. You got too much control.
Mhm.
You're a little bit too judgmental.
Mm.
When he starts telling you about you,
Right.
it will break you down. And that's what happened.
Mm.
So now, wait a minute. I thought I trusted you. That's a test of your faith in itself because it's like, okay, well, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not rocking with you like I thought I was rocking with you.
Mhm.
That's that part. But more importantly, this is not what you showed me. And I don't understand how we get from point A to point B with this little section here in the middle. You know what I
Right.
mean? Um, and so yeah, I had some nights where I was just crying
Mhm.
because then I was hurt. I was hurt because my husband was gone. I was hurt because I felt like God was basically saying, look, you wrong and we need to fix it.
Mm.
But I didn't allow his grace to cover me and draw me in. I kind of
Wow.
retreated.
Mm.
I retreated because I was like, okay, well, my husband mad at me, and now God, I feel like you mad at me because I'm not trusting you right. The kids are with him. I'm in the house alone now.
Right.
Cause now I really feel alone. Cause now I feel like, okay, God, you upset with me,
Mhm.
and it. Probably
Like it's
sounds silly,
almost like it's punishment, like you're punishing me for doing, yeah. Mhm.
yeah. So like now I'm all alone. Like who do I call now?
Mhm.
What do I do now? And that really shook me.
Mm.
That's when my faith was like, well, you know how the enemy start, guess what?
Mhm.
But that's when it was really like, why have I been serving you all? Like, why have I been doing the things I have been doing? Why have I been believing you? Why have I been putting my faith in you when I feel like you have just left me here?
Mhm.
When I feel like you kind of told me I was wrong and you left me there. That's how I felt.
Almost like this lesson is, God, you could have showed me this lesson in a whole nother way. Like, if you wanted to teach me something, you could have, you know, took me down a whole nother way. You didn't have to, do it in this particular way. But I want to go back to something that you said, and I don't want um, viewers to miss, women or men to miss it. But you said that your husband was struggling and you didn't recognize it. And I don't want us to gloss over that. I don't want us to miss that because a lot of times in our marriages, in our relationships, we can take the other person for granted and we can think because they're
Mhm.
showing up and they're smiling and they're doing all the things that appear to be okay, that they don't have an internal struggle, that there's something
Right.
that they're not struggling with. But even as believers, as children of God who can have a great relationship with God, it does not mean that we are exempt from having those struggles. But you
Right.
talked about how you didn't notice it, and eventually this internal pressure now explodes,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
It starts on
Hmm.
the inside, now it's going to the outside, and now everybody's like, well, wait a minute, because it's almost like a little rip that started and then it
And it
just
grew.
and now
Hmm.
everybody can see, hey, you got a big old hole on the side of your jeans. You need to
Hmm.
fix that hole. So now it's exposed. Everybody can see it. So, um, how did you when you recognized, okay, this is what's going on with my husband. I didn't catch it. I didn't see it. Do
Hmm.
you feel like God was trying to show you at some point and you missed it? Like were you just too locked in on self and you didn't see it? Do you feel like or maybe God said this wasn't something that I wanted you to see? How did you deal with that exposure of the struggle?
When I think back on that time, I often say I was in a fool's paradise
Mm,
because they say hindsight is 2020. You
mm-hmm,
know how, and I'm gonna give it to you like this. You know how when there's like a hurricane or a tornado, and you look at the news and they have like that aerial map and it shows you the storm.
mm-hmm,
And it shows you, the storm is, 5 miles wide or whatever. Like they show you how big it is, they
right.
show you how fast it's going, they show you how fast the winds are going. They tell you all that, and you can kind of look, oh, and it's down, right? And you think to yourself, oh, well, I'm glad I'm not in the path of that storm. Or, the people in this area, it's gonna come through, right?
Mm-hmm,
But when you're the person in the storm, you can't see that.
right.
You can't see how big it is. You
Mm-hmm.
can't see, or you don't know how fast the wind is going. You just know the wind is blowing, it's raining
You're in,
hard,
yeah,
and you're in the middle and you can't see,
you
right?
can see it.
So during this time, that's where I was
Mm,
in this storm. As God began to kind of peel back layers, I guess I will say,
mm-hmm,
then I could see.
right.
And it wasn't even right then, it was even after we had kind of reconciled and I should say, elevated me to be able to look down like I'm looking at the map. And then
Okay.
I could see the totality of the storm.
Mm-hmm.
You got it? And it was like, okay, you remember when that happened? That was a flag. You remember when this happened? That was a flag. You remember when he told you this? You missed it. And it was like all this stuff before it got to the center or the eye of that storm. All of these moments
Mm-hmm.
that I missed. But
Mm,
it was like in the moment, I remember it happening, but I wasn't cognizant to recognize like, okay, that's a flag, that's a warning, that's something God is showing me. Because when I say he broke me down, he took me to a place where I've never left you. I did warn you. I did prepare you.
mm.
You just missed it.
You missed it.
And I think sometimes, a lot of times as believers, and we start working, not just in the church, but just period, we're doing that. We sometimes are so focused on, I got to do this, and we're ticking off those boxes that we can miss God in the moments that we need to catch God in.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we know, God is not always going to do this big, grandiose thing. It's going to
Right.
be a lot of times in these little things, little by little. He's pruning, he's showing, he's shaping.
Right.
And sometimes they almost seem so minute and so just um, simplistic
Mm-hmm.
that we miss it. So for me, when God was taking me back through it, and I could see, like, oh, yeah, I remember that happening.
Right.
And I remember this happening. Oh, I remember him telling me that, right? Another thing I will say when I mentioned to you that we had the biggest fight we had ever had, one of the things my husband said to me, and to this day I never forget it, but he said, how everything that was going on, how could you not know I was struggling?
Mm.
How did you think I could do all this? How did you think I was doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have an answer. I didn't have an answer for him. I was like, oh, you know, and so yeah, that was that. So I've got this part, and then I'm like, okay, God, you did show me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to repent because one, I missed it. Two, I realized that I had gotten comfortable. So even though me and God were rocking, we was cool, I wasn't praying for my marriage like I should. I wasn't praying for my husband like I should. I was praying for everything else, my kids, and make sure the finances is good. And I'm praying for the other stuff. And I missed the prayer over my own home,
Mm.
right? Um, and now we're in this struggle.
Right.
And my husband is struggling. And
Mm-hmm.
so now I'm struggling. And so now my kids are struggling. It's a whole,
Right.
it's a big thing. So I yeah, I would just say God, he took me to a place where I could see it. And it wasn't like, I don't know what you're talking about. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, you did show me that. You did.
You
I
couldn't
remember.
deny it. You could not deny the evidence that was
I
in the
I saw that.
courtroom. It was like, yep, we got you on the video.
Yep. Like, and I was like, oh,
Is
right.
this you?
Um,
Yep, that's
so yeah, like, but that's a different kind of humbling. You know what I
mm,
mean? Because it's like,
yeah.
it's almost like when you're a teacher and you know good, or I'm saying, oh yeah, teacher, and you know you have given them all the information in this section, and then you grading them papers, and you're looking like,
Y'all act like I ain't
who
taught y'all nothing.
this, right? Or if I put it into the corporate perspective, I'm sure you train people before, I train people before, and you hear, y'all didn't teach me that.
Y'all didn't teach
Yes,
me that
we
in
did.
training. We went over that. It
We
was two
went over
days
that.
worth of material.
Right. We talked about that. So I'm like, yeah. So it was like God was like, listen, I'm gonna let you have your moment. You can be mad, you can do all of that. But what you're not gonna do is basically call me a lie because I did promise you and I showed you these
Right.
things. And you weren't praying,
Yeah.
you weren't giving them to me, you weren't trusting me to handle it. I gave you the warning signs and you missed
You
them.
missed them. And then, when you talk about, God showed you the life, He showed you the marriage, He showed you the kids, He showed you all the things. And we got to remember, we got to be really careful with this, that when God shows you the promise, as soon as God shows you the promise, we have an adversary at the cross. We have an enemy who is going to do everything in his power to not get you not to believe in the promise,
In
to
that
get you
promise.
to doubt the promise, to get you to walk away from the promise. When God, as soon as God shows it, you got to be a steward over it. You got to
Protect it.
pray for it.
Hmm.
You got to start preparing for it, and see it. And it's so much that you said, but you talked about how like you were serving in church and you were showing up and you're doing, you're doing all the right things. You're doing all the right things. So God, if I'm doing all the right things, I'm showing up and I'm doing everything for everybody else. And yeah, God is going to protect and He is going to preserve, but there are still levels of responsibility that we have. And I
Yeah.
think early on in our Christian walk and our discipleship journey, those are the basics that we got to
Mhm.
remember. And that's why I am, when I share content, when I share my faith, when I share the strategies, the kingdom strategies, these are things that I'm learning in life now. And I'm like, man, maybe I knew this back then, but I didn't have a word for it. I didn't know how to
Mhm.
define it. I didn't know how to describe it. I didn't know how to put it down as a divine blueprint. And there
Mhm.
may be somebody else who is struggling with this same thing. So let me give them the words so they can articulate it. Let me show them the plan so they can put pen to paper and write out an action. Because
Mhm.
when God shows you the promise, you cannot be lazy about the promise. You got to pray over that promise. You got to
And you have to
pursue that
protect it.
promise
Mhm.
at all costs, even when you get the promise in your lap. That's just like when you have a baby. When you go through
Mhm.
the 9 months of caring for that child and that baby comes, as soon as the baby comes, now you still gotta take care of the baby.
Exactly. Mhm.
You got to feed it. You know what I'm saying? You got to nurse it. You got to teach it things. That's just like the promise of God. When He shows us the promise, it's like it's coming into the womb. Okay, you're about to give birth, but until you give birth to it, you gotta start praying over the promise. You got to get ready for the promise to come into the world. You got to get your environment ready for the promise. Then once you get to the place where you birth the promise. Okay, now the promise is here. What am I going to do with the promise? The promise is in the environment. The environment is ready, but guess what? You still got to steward the promise. You still got to pray over it. It still got some growing and some cultivating that you got to do. You cannot drop the responsibility of your promise. And
Right.
we got to learn, we got to be very discerning in what is God and what
What
is
is?
church.
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
is God? What is church? God ordained. What does God need me to do, requiring of me to do, and what is the church needing me or
Need me
requiring
to
me to
do.
do?
Mhm.
There are some things that will require your press and your yes. But then there are some things where you're going to have to be like, nah, because my promise of my marriage, my promise of my kids are at stake. I can't
Mhm.
miss out on A, B, and C because I don't want to miss the struggles, right?
Right.
And I know that, and I love my Bill. I love him. He knows that I love him, and have always loved him, and he knows that. But I know that for him to even get to the place, just as a man, and I don't want to speak for all men, but most men that I know that I've been able to be in the presence of and just hearing them talk, men are not going to be forthcoming with struggles.
Mhm.
They want the people around them to know what those struggles are. And as women, we have to be on the front line, and we got to be in our prayer closets praying over our husbands for God to
Right.
show us, because if the devil is going to attack anybody first, he is going to attack the
The
head.
head, the head. That's right. That is something, I don't know if I'm skipping ahead in your thing, but that's something that I have learned. I kind of want to go back to something you said about, when God showed us a promise and there's an adversary because
Mm-hmm.
they know.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something I would also interject when it comes to our faith and test of faith. That is the one of the areas that believers struggle the most in. We struggle with that every single day. When
Mm-hmm.
you think about all the fights you have, your faith fight is what I'm gonna call it
Mm-hmm.
every day. But you gotta recognize the attacks of the enemy, like you said, right? And one of the things after all this happened that God brought to me as I'm kind of getting back, he was like, one of the areas that the enemy always attacks you in, and he always seems to succeed in beating you down, is your relationship.
Mm.
Because you have to know, we know the devil can't do nothing, dude. He doesn't create, right?
Right.
And if he does something that is effective and he gets you off kilter for just a minute, he gonna do it again. He gonna
Mm-hmm.
do it again. He gonna do it again. He gonna keep doing it and keep doing it. You overcome it and say, okay, you know what? I'm about to cover this area. And
Right.
that's what happened. And God brought that to my memory. It was like, it was, and it wasn't anything ever, huge like this happened. Again, we were separated on the verge of divorce, but we would have, little skirmishes, like, little arguments and things where we maybe went and talk for a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized you talked about the rip in the jeans. We have a crack in your marriage. You have a crack here now. So now guess what? He has a foothold.
Right.
And what's going to keep happening is going to get wider and wider. And before you know it, that foothold is the whole doorway.
Mm-hmm.
And he done came on in.
Yes.
And that's what happened. So I think when we talk about overcoming, I had to recognize, first of all, okay, this is an area
Mm-hmm.
that I'm vulnerable to. This is an area that he likes to attack me in. Let's start there, right?
Right.
And I began, okay, God, thank you for showing that. Now I'm paying attention, right? Now my radar is up. I'm paying
Mm-hmm.
attention. Okay, Lord, you got me. I'm here now, head of the class, paying attention. Um, and so you're right. Then I'm like, okay, yeah, I have to nurture this. Just like you talked about the child. We nurture that child. We care for that child. We pray over that child. The promise, whatever the promise is, whatever that looks like for the women who will see this, whatever it is, yes, God's promises are yes and amen. Yes, He's going to show us stuff. Yes, we know from Numbers, He is a man that he won't lie. He can't lie. It's
Right.
not in His nature. He can't do it. So if He tells you something's going to happen, and it's going to
Be
happen.
happening.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked what you said. We have to get in position. We've got to pray over it. We've got to be ready to steward it. And we've
Mm-hmm.
got to be ready to kind of cultivate with it. And I think, yes, God showed me the marriage. Yes, God showed me the kids. And as I mentioned, I prayed before I got married. Is this the man? Okay, cool. He the man. I got the man and I got the ring. I'm good now,
I'm
but no,
good.
ma'am,
God,
you
here
were
it is.
not.
God, you do
Right.
everything else.
Like, yeah, no, ma'am, you are not. There is still work to do, right? Um, so when I think about that whole time, as you mentioned, I had to think about who God is.
Mm. Yeah.
Like, not just who he is to me, but who is he?
Right. His nature.
What is his nature?
Yeah.
What is his nature? What is his character? Because we talked about during that season, I'm like, this, mm-mm. So I had to be, I was like, okay, let's start here, right? Let's read. God, who are you? So I remember during those times, every night I was reading the 23rd Psalm to myself because that was the only way for me to kind of, calm down from you're going through something stressful and anxiety, you got, insomnia, you can't sleep. So you're trying to do whatever you can do. So I would just read
Mm-hmm.
the 23rd Psalm.
Mm.
God, who are you? That was a good one. I mean, there's so many others, but that was the one that I would turn to, like, okay, yeah. When nothing else, you are there,
Yeah.
right? Um, so yeah, my husband, he is a man's man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's a man's man.
It's a man's man.
But
It is.
while God was working on me in that season and doing things, I know and I see the evidence that God was doing the same thing for him.
Right.
So yeah, I mean when you get married, you say forever. These I meant forever. You made these
Exactly.
vows, you made this covenant. So yeah, to think that everything I had prayed for was gonna be gone,
Yeah.
I wasn't okay with that.
Right.
It was very unsettling.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's what I mean when I say I had to go back to who God is.
Mm.
And but we wanted to honor our vows, sorry, not vowels, vows, um, not letters, but we wanted to honor our vows to each other. But also when you are in that marriage ceremony, and I think people sometimes forget, you're making a covenant with God to
Yeah.
tell them, hey, and I think marriage has become so flipped to some people that they forget that part. Like, yeah, it's me and him, but it's us and him.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we forget that. So after God did the work for each of us, we were able to say, okay, I was able to recognize, I told you this is the area that attacks. Okay, so now let's cover this.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do, right? Let's cover this together, not just together.
Right.
I
Be a
remember
unified
during that,
force.
but together, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
remember that time, during that time, this is just a little ad lib. I was out shopping and I ran into an old friend of mine. We used to work together and we were just, just talking. And she is a believer. She is a woman of faith, a very strong woman of faith. And we were just shooting the breeze, just catching up on old times. And I don't remember how I started talking about my marriage and what I was going through, but it kind of started coming out. And she knows my husband from when they were little. So it just happens she knows him. So she just happened to ask me, she was like, let me ask you a question. And I was like, yeah. And she says, is he in the home with you now? Is he living in the house? And I was like, no, we separated. She said, yep. That's how, you know how God works. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, no. She said, okay. And then she started to share with me, what happened with her and her husband. And they had kind of a similar situation. And she said, I want you to get this book. And it was called The Praying Wife by, I believe, Stormy
Stormy.
O'Marsh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She said, I want you to get this book and read this book. And
Mm-hmm.
she said, because it teaches you how to pray for your husband.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was actually a companion book, The Praying Husband
Mm-hmm.
thing. So my husband and I both have those books because, I'm like, listen, I want to cover you. I want you to cover me. We're going to cover the kids, but we got to cover us. And so we really had to let God do his thing. That's the best way I can put that.
Yeah. So
We
what
let
like what did that look like? Because like you're in the middle, you're still kind of in the middle of the overcoming story. So like
Mhm.
what did overcoming look like before it got fully resolved? Like you kind of shared a little bit about some things that God had revealed to you. So like talk about that process. So you took this information, what did you do with it? Like how did you start strategizing to get to the
to
to
come
the
back out.
overcome? Yeah.
So, you don't want to, we can be prideful. I'm gonna say I can be prideful sometimes. We don't want to say we're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We don't always want to say we're sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in the relationships, the one who said they sorry first is the weak one. You just
Yeah.
have to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as God gave me this information and showed me, okay, this is what it is. I had to have a real conversation with my husband,
Mm.
right? Tell me what it is. Talk to
Yeah.
me. Like now you have my attention. That was step one.
Okay.
Okay. Um, and he began to share with me. Step two was, okay, are we going to keep going
Mm-hmm.
or are we not?
Make a
Because
decision.
make a decision. Because if I have to overcome this, like you said, if my overcoming is us being separated, let me go ahead and prepare myself and start doing this. If it's going to be that we're going to put this back together, then let's make that decision. That was our decision.
Right.
Because as I said, how can we not? So I said, okay, you got to come home.
Mm.
You got to come home. And understand that when he came home, it wasn't like, okay,
Because now you
mm-mm.
gotta get back. Because
Now
this
you got to get
you
back.
both have
We
developed new
had
normals.
we had to have very real conversations. And this was a period of time, even though it was one of the darkest moments in my life, I am very very grateful for God for allowing this to happen because I began to learn my husband in a new way. I
Mm-hmm.
began to learn things about him that I didn't know. I began to learn things about his childhood that I didn't know. So
Right.
we became vulnerable, if I can say, almost naked before each other, not
Exactly.
physically, but we just were able to I was able to see, oh,
I mean, y'all
right?
married, so both is okay.
Both is fine, right? But it was just like, okay. And I was able to see, things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I get this now. And then I learned now I have to pray. I
Yes.
gotta keep praying because God, He's giving me this information. How do I support him in that? What
Yeah.
is my role in that? What do I do with this information?
Yeah.
Right? So the best way that I can answer your question, the process of it is really going through the process,
Mm-hmm.
doing the work, doing things we don't want to do, doing the hard things, being able to say I'm sorry, being
Right.
able to tackle these issues when they happen. One thing I used to say is I used to walk on eggshells in my house
Mm.
because I wouldn't say certain things because I was afraid it was going to trigger him
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't want him to leave.
Was this before or after the
This
separation?
was both.
Okay.
This was before, this was after, and
Okay.
this was during the reconciliation. I didn't want to say certain things.
Okay.
And one of our, remember, I told you we had real conversations, and we were having a conversation, and God said, "You're gonna have to just let him know just how you feel." And I don't know why. That's how God talks to me sometimes. Like, girl, I
Right.
don't know why you trying not to tell him this. This is how y'all got in this mess in the first place
Right.
because you weren't communicating,
Communicating. Yeah.
you weren't talking. And so I remember I told him, I said, "Listen, sometimes I want to say stuff to you, and I don't, or I feel certain things, and I don't tell you how I'm feeling."
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to make you angry and I don't want you to leave.
Yeah.
Right. And his response to me was, well, we've already done that. One of us already left. He was like, so basically, he was basically saying, at this point, there is nothing that needs to be left unsaid
Mm-hmm.
because it was like a line
Because
in
he
our
left
relationship.
even because the
Even
outcome happened even though you wasn't
anyway,
anything. So
exactly.
wow.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it was like, this is a
What do you
line in
gotta
our
lose?
relationship.
What do you got to lose now?
Right. I'll
Yeah.
just go all in. So we learned overcoming in that time, learn, okay, we have to talk. We
Yeah.
have to communicate. We got to tell each other what's on our mind. I got to start praying about my marriage. We got to start praying for our family.
Yeah.
We got to start letting God lead us in our decisions.
Right.
Right. And I didn't give you all the details, but during that time, we were struggling financially very bad,
Mm-hmm.
very, very bad. And that's kind of how everything.
Because you hadn't worked because you were
I was at home. Yeah, I had all
yeah,
them
you were being the
babies.
stay-at-home
So
mom, the
I
stay-at-home
was a
wife,
stay-at-home
mom.
mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were so financially, it was very, very tight. It's
Mm-hmm.
very tight. And as you know, when you have financial woes in a marriage,
Yeah.
that's already a telltale. Things are gonna get tight. But we were really going through, and I found out, he would be praying for increase and things like that. And basically, what it came down to, my overcoming looked like recognizing where I had failed in my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want to admit failure.
Yeah.
We don't want to admit, oh, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I and that's where I was okay. So yeah, I've been a stay-at-home mom and you needed my help.
Mm.
And I didn't know,
Yeah.
right? Because the lights were always on. There was always food on the table. Everything was still getting done.
But you didn't know how
Only
you wasn't calculating the dice.
how
Y'all like that marriage because I know people who have like those marriage check-ins and you sit down, they sit down once a week or on a regular cadence to
Mhm.
talk about different things. And that's something like that even now, like that George and I we're working to just but we know how to communicate, but I want to get better at having those regular cadence
Check-ins.
conversations before things get out of the loop, so that it doesn't get to the point where it's like, oh man, we gotta sit down and figure something out.
Now,
Yeah,
but we began basically we had to ask each other, what do you need?
yeah.
I asked him, what do you need from me to help? And I told him what I needed. So one of the things we did to combat, okay, what's happening with the finances, we got a joint banking account. I can
Okay.
see it, you can see it. We can see what's coming in, we can see what's going out. So hey, wait a minute. You
What's
get a little,
this?
what's this? You get a little, we did that. And we've been doing that since then.
Okay.
Right. Marriage check-ins, I definitely encourage those. But my husband and I, we talk every day,
Mm-hmm.
every day, every night. I can truly say my husband is my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
So when you ask me what did overcoming look like, doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, you have to make a decision that this is not going to take me out. This is not going to break me. I cannot stay here.
Right.
I have to get there. I already know what's there because God showed me that it was there. But if
Mm-hmm.
I let this take me out, I'm not going to fulfill the promises that I know He gave me. Right.
Right.
So when you talk about the faith and you talk about, okay, your faith is being tested and whatnot, but if you lose it,
Mm-hmm.
and you just stay where you are,
What have you
right?
done? Right. What
What
have you
why?
done?
What
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 is?
was all of it for?
Yeah.
Right? Um, and so that's my strategy was I can't stop.
Mm.
I did lean on God. Okay, God, I know who you are. I know, you always gonna be there for me. I know you're not gonna leave me. Your word, you told me in Malachi to test you. I know he was talking about some other things, but I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm about to hold you to your word.
Mm.
And I'm putting my marriage in your hands
Mm-hmm.
because there's no other place for me to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And working it out, going through it. And so me and my husband learned then that there is no conversation that's off limits.
Right.
There is nothing that we can't say to each other. I remember an old church member, she had said, "Oh, my baby getting a little chunky, he getting a little chunky," and I was like, "She's like, yeah, I'm gonna tell him about that." And I was like, "You can tell him that?" She was like, Girl, that's how we rock. We don't keep nothing back." And I was like, you know what? That works for him. And I was like, but I mean, something so small. I was like, oh, okay. But it's important that hey, we have these conversations, right? It's important that
And
okay,
you got to
we
know
don't
your
hold
spouse to be able to talk to your spouse. Like, don't try to take what's
easy.
working in somebody else's marriage and be like, oh, I'm gonna do that. Because your
I'm gonna
spouse
do
might
that.
be like, no, don't talk to me like that.
Don't do that. But the point that I was making with that is that they had an openness that they could discuss that.
That
And I
they
was like, wait,
could.
what?
Exactly.
And I want that. Maybe not talk about my weight because I don't want to know. I already know.
Exactly.
I
Because I don't
have a
want to know
scale. You don't
that.
gotta tell
I don't
me.
want to know that.
Right. I've seen it already, right? Don't tell me that. But hey, be able, for lack of a better phrase, to check me. We
Yeah,
all need accountability people.
exactly.
And my husband is my partner. My husband is my helpmate. My
Mm,
husband and I are in this court together.
right.
So if I'm out of order, you got to tell me that. So
Yeah,
we don't have anything that is off limits. So if there is any woman who's like, okay, I'm going through that, you've got to make the decision that you want to come out of it.
right.
And you have to decide what that looks like for you. And ask God, okay, just like you said, your overcoming was divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Your overcoming may be, quitting a job or whatever the situation is.
Mm-hmm.
That may be your overcoming. And it may not look like what you thought it was going to look like, but you have to work it out and trust and know that whatever God showed you
Mm-hmm.
or told you, it's going to happen.
Exactly.
All you're going to be doing is delaying the inevitable because it is going
To happen.
to happen.
Yeah.
When I graduated, one of the things I put on my post is delay is not denial.
Right.
God said it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So for us, it looked like doing the work because I can honestly say I had got lazy in my marriage,
Mm. So,
right?
like, you what about some boundaries and support? Because now you're going through, well, you've been through, and you know, this has been years now, but what are some nuggets that, like, these are the staples in your marriage now? What boundaries or what support systems do you have in place, like, that are necessary, that wasn't just necessary for you to overcome, but that are still necessary for you to continue to grow and for your marriage to continue to thrive?
So we don't lie ever. And I know that sounds, what? You know how some wives, you order something from Amazon and you spent money on shoes and you don't want your husband to know you bought the shoe.
You hide packages.
I don't do that. We can't afford to do that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's what I mean when I say we don't lie to one another. That's something I sometimes share too much on my other. He's like, baby, you don't gotta tell me that. I'm like, I just need you to know just what's happening. This is what I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing. So for me, that's one as far as our relationship goes. Another one, and it sounds cliche, we don't raise our voices with one another. Like you're my sister. You've been in my home. You've been around me and my husband, and you notice me and my husband. We don't really fight. We'll joke around and play. Little, but we don't really fight. We
Mm-hmm.
don't argue about things like that. We'll have a conversation. So one of the things we're not going to be yelling and raising our voices with one another.
Right. Because when
Um,
if Bill raised his voice,
yeah,
I better sit
yeah,
down.
yeah, right. So that's that. But another thing that we have started doing that I love is we serve together at church.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm serving, he's serving,
Okay.
and we worship together,
Mm.
right? Of all the things that I could say has helped in the like that would be the biggest one.
Mm.
As far as the boundaries go, and like, okay, we don't really let a lot of people in our relationship.
Mm.
Because you notice you're my sister and I can be transparent. I don't vent to you a whole lot about, girl, my husband.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that. Even though you're my sister and I love you dearly, it's my relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't let the thoughts and opinions and what everybody else has to say. This is at the end of the day,
Gotta
it's me and
protect your
him.
piase. You gotta protect your piase.
Right. So it's like even we don't hear that. So that's one thing we don't talk about what's in this house. We handling this together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, me to say, oh yeah, but this is the thing, we don't argue. That's something that um we don't do.
Mm.
We don't do it, and we definitely, if we're having a conversation that's a little bit intense, we don't do it in front of the kids. We gotta wait for them to go to sleep, and we gotta go to the room and close the door, and we gotta talk real quiet. It's like, like,
Y'all be in the
and
house.
have the and and have the conversation. And it's usually not even a fight, but it's maybe be something that we don't want the kids to hear. We don't, it's sensitive information that maybe they don't
Right.
need to know, right? Um,
Exactly.
so those are things, but like I said, the biggest that I can tell you, the biggest tool is with us worshiping together.
Mm.
And and I get a little giddy right now because my husband and I are in such a beautiful place in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
For the past couple years, actually, we've been just in this beautiful place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's because, God had to really basically start a new relationship. It's almost like we started over again,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I had to say anything, I would just say, yeah, protect your peace, protect your relationship if it's the marriage. And understand that the neighbor's marriage is not your marriage.
Exactly.
the things, yeah, you guys might go through the similar situations, but these are totally different people.
Mm-hmm.
And what worked for neighbor over here may not work for you. So
Not work.
even what I'm telling you, I went through and how I overcame and what worked for us, it may not work for you, but understand that all things
Work together.
work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called by his word. So let him lead you is the best that I can say, because
Yeah.
that's what I did.
Yeah.
I had to yield to God. I had I had to let it break me, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah.
Because I know you probably remember, and I remember being laid out in the back of the church because it had finally gotten to the point where I just
I couldn't.
couldn't hold it together.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm out for some minutes, some time. Um, because when God want to do a thing, He gonna do it.
You want it. And
That's
not only when God wants to do it, but when you want to be released from it. When you realize, when you get to that moment where you like, you know what, God, I don't fought this long enough. I
mhm,
have dealt with these demons long enough. I have dealt with these issues long enough. I am tired. I can't. I can't keep doing it. Like I'm woe out.
right,
I'm past
right,
or I'm woe out. I don't even have the R or the E for it.
or
I'm
the
woe
E,
out.
right,
I'm woe out. And I
right.
need you to come in and transform me. Like start this internal healing, start this internal transformation. It's a beautiful thing, but it is a process for us to get there. And what
And it is a
I
painful process sometimes. Just throwing that
exactly
out there.
it's painful, it's ugly, you know, it doesn't feel good. Everybody's journey is different. And I'm probably going to say this with all of these empowerment sessions when you talk about overcoming, but the one thing that the devil wants you to think when you're going through your overcoming story is that you are the only person that's going through it. Nobody understands it. You are on this island called alone. There's nobody that you can connect with. It is just going to be me and you and these negative thoughts and these negative emotions. And the more you just harbor those feelings, he's just going to continue to compound and compound. And he's going to get all his little friends. He's going to get resentment. He's going to get anger. He's going to get
Mhm.
pride. He's going to get hate, resentfulness, jealousy. He's going to get all of these to come in. And at some point, like you, wait a minute, I can't, I can't deal with, I can't live. This is not the life that God promised me. And either way, I'm in a battle. Either way, I'm in
Right,
a fight. Because these crazy spirits are fighting me, and this is foreign to my spirit, and
right.
I'm fighting God. So it's like, God, I might as well join you. Like, give me some relief. Give me
Mhm.
some pressure. Like, take a hole, take a screw and poke a hole in
Just
this
listen,
thing
yeah.
to let some of this pressure off of me. But you know, marriage is hard.
Mhm.
Divorce is hard. Both are hard. Um, and both of them require you to make the decision to overcome.
Mhm.
And you know, when it comes to marriage, no one goes into the marriage thinking, well, you know, this, I don't know, somebody might, but nobody that I know have ever
You
encountered.
don't go into it thinking about the end.
Right. You don't go into it like, well, like it's a purchase. Like, well, if I don't like it in 30 days, I'm gonna just send it back. You know,
Right.
if it doesn't work out, nobody goes into it thinking about this is something that I'm gonna return. Like when you go into it, you're going into it under the impression that okay, you're making a covenant to God and that it is gonna be for better or for worse. And then when things start happening, you're like, okay, wait a minute, how do I continue to stay in it? And it requires two people that are mature enough, that are strong enough, that are willing to stay in the fight, um, just to kind of keep that fire burning. And just remembering that your marriage is your marriage. You got to pray and you got to ask God to show you the marriage that God designed for you, the spouse that God gave you. Even though you have a husband or you have a wife and somebody else has a husband or a wife, it's not the same husband.
Not the
It's
same
not the
thing.
same wife. It's
Right.
not the same kids. It's not the same house. The dynamics are different. So
Mhm.
while there are staples that are required to have a godly marriage thrive, there are some things that and are in one marriage that may not, like, because you talked about how you and your husband worship together. Me and my
Mhm.
husband, we don't worship together.
Right.
But that was one of the things that we talked about before we even got married
Right.
was, is this something that you want? Do you want me to come and worship with you? And that was something that I had to think about. Um, and when he was like, well, no, that doesn't bother me because he knew, he knew what I was doing at the time. And even now that I've left that church and I, went to another church and I'm serving there, it's still the same thing, but you got to be willing to have that conversation, have those
Right.
check-ins to make sure that
Right.
everything is still okay. And then you got to be willing to support each other because my husband and I, we show up for each other, we support each other. If there's something happening in his church and he wants me there, then guess what? I'm going to be there and vice versa.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
to the point now where his pastor gonna put me on the preacher's gonna put me on the preacher's
Absolutely.
schedule. But
Absolutely. I
But
mean,
that works for us, and people have asked me like, well, how does that work? That may not work for you and your husband. I can't tell you
right.
that it's gonna work. Like I know of marriages where it works for them, right? And then I know marriages where they're like, nah, that's not gonna work for us. But
Right.
again, that's not a staple.
But these
Um,
are conversations, like you said, you have to have. It's better if you had them beforehand so you know what the expectation is, going in,
exactly.
but it's never too late to have the conversation.
It's never
You know what
too
I mean?
late.
So
It's never too
so
late.
you so
And I
even if
mean,
you're already married and you didn't talk about it, well, let's talk about it.
and even if you're in a situation where maybe you started off on the same track and you were worshiping together, and now it's like, hey, look, I don't really want to do this anymore.
Right.
Okay, well, if one person is like, well, I'm happy. Do you want me to leave? I really don't want to leave. You got to have that
You, you,
conversation.
you got to
To
have the
get,
conversation and be willing to meet in the middle if necessary.
mm-hmm,
Marriage is a partnership.
uh-huh,
It's two people, right? It's two people who are one, if that makes sense.
trying to
So
figuring it out.
figuring it out together, like, okay, and then when you have kids in the mix, because we have kids, our kids,
Mm-hmm,
my daughters serve, my youngest baby girl, she serves in the pre-K. My oldest daughter serves. The only one who don't serve are our boys because they're still kind of small, but it's like a family affair, if you will. So
right,
we had to make the decision, okay, God, we want you in our homes. We
right.
want you in this thing through and through each and every one of us, working it
One,
out.
two, three.
For us, that is a staple, right?
Exactly.
That is it's as my pastor called it, a tent pole. We talked about having your tent pole and enlarging your tent, enlarging your territory. Like these are things you need to have in place.
Mm-hmm,
And these are things that can help you overcome. Okay.
exactly.
Because, like you said, it's a part of your plan. And how do I keep this from happening again? So, for us, secrecy and lying and hiding, that's how we got in this mess. So that's what I said. I don't do that. Even if it's, I have my own bank account, he knows that. He knows what goes in my bank account.
Right,
We don't keep I don't keep any of that to chance because I don't want any crevices. I don't want to make no footholds. I don't want to
right.
make the enemy have an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to come in that area, right? So now, we have the children, so we have to pray over our children because we notice things happening with our kids. Like, okay, you can't get to the marriage, so now you're gonna try
Try to go through
this.
the kids.
Okay, now you're gonna
Yeah.
try to go, okay, well, let's go ahead and get this down. So I think that's why the communication is so important because we have those conversations like, hey, have you noticed something going on with Jess? Have you noticed Jason? Have you
Mm,
noticed yeah, I did notice that. Okay, well let's talk about that. Let's pray
yeah.
about that. Let's do what we need to do to kind of get that. And I feel like if we're talking about marriage, you can't afford not to have the conversations.
Right.
You can't afford not to, especially if you want your marriage to work.
To work and thrive. Exactly. So as we kind of close things up, because you've given a lot of nuggets in the journey to overcoming for marriage. So just take a moment, Deirdre, and speak to the woman that's watching that feels like, maybe she's fighting in her marriage, maybe she's fighting in her health, in her finances, on her job, in her mind, just, things are just all over the place. What would you speak to her, or what would you tell her about God right now to get her to that place where she believes and she feels like she is more than an overcomer?
The first thing, you're not by yourself.
Mm,
You are not in isolation by yourself. I, there are women, when we are so complex as women, we experience so much.
mm-hmm,
The first thing, you're not by yourself.
mm-hmm,
The second thing, if you are a believer, right, whether you're new to it or you've kind of been in the game, I would challenge you to learn God
mm,
first. Learn his character, his nature first, right? Because you'll learn that, I had a pastor once say, I would rather be in the hands of an angry God than not be in God's hands at all,
mm,
or not be in his hands at all. So, for the woman who's kind of going through this right now, I would say, if it's like this, if you're feeling this and you're kind of going through this now, and you feel like God is not there,
mm-hmm,
what have you got to lose if you lean on God?
mm,
Okay? Because if you're outside of his will, but you're still here.
mm-hmm,
He is still giving you mercies every day. You're still
mm-hmm,
here.
mm-hmm,
So what have you got to lose by saying, okay, you know what, God, I'm going to surrender this to you?
mm-hmm,
That's the word we don't like to use.
mm-hmm,
And it's hard.
mm-hmm,
If you're like mental health, struggling with mental health and anxiety and depression, why do I say that? I struggle with that.
mm-hmm,
I recently been diagnosed with that. That's my next overcoming,
mm-hmm,
right? So no, you're not by yourself. No, you're not going crazy, because when you ask me what God even knew this about me,
right,
right? And so if I know he knows me, if his word says he even knows the number of hairs on my head, he
exactly,
knows my story from beginning to end. He knows every single thing that we are encountering and going to encounter. So you better believe
exactly,
he got the plan to get you out.
mm,
So why not lean to him? Why not seek his understanding? Why? So what would I say to you is, why not? Why
mm,
haven't you? Because you tried it your way.
mm,
You did it your way. So what have we got? Why not give it to God? Why not let him make you whole?
yeah,
And understand that it's overcoming is an action word. It's not a noun. Well, it's actually both. I'm saying that overcomer is the noun and
right,
overcoming is the action verb,
mm-hmm,
meaning you got to do something.
yeah,
And I would say to lean in and start asking the questions. God, what am I learning in this season?
mm,
What are you pulling out of me in this season? What are you pruning for me, right? Why am I experiencing this? And it just might be so that your testimony can help somebody else, because this was just mine. And mine may not necessarily be at your front door, but understand that yours might be at the next person's front door, and then and so forth and so on. So it may not even be for you. It may be for the next woman beside you.
somebody else, exactly,
Somebody, so you have to go through. So I would say, sis, you're not by yourself.
You're not by
There
yourself.
is a village. Find
Mhm.
you a village. If you don't have a village, the Street of Sanctuary, I know she'll pray for you. I know she will. You know, and you just gotta keep going. The biggest thing for me is I had to keep going
Keep going.
and be mindful. I didn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
So you got to be willing to keep going. You got to be willing to trust the process, trust God in the process. Um, Being in the hands of God is the best place to be, regardless of how bad we feel, but being in God's hands. And then remember that we overcome by our testimony, by sharing our testimony. That is Bible, that's in the word. And that's why the devil, again, he fights us so hard so that we don't share our stories. And that's why I created this space, Women on the Move Empowerment Sessions, so that women could share their stories, their overcoming stories, their testimonies, different, stages of life that women go through, because so many times we feel like we're by ourselves, and then as we start to share light to our personal stories, we find out, oh, you were going through that, you went through this, you did
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was me. That I've been there. I know what that's about. And
Right.
they're like, well, wow, I never would have known that. Yeah, you never would have known it until you opened up
Until now.
about everything. But Deirdre, I appreciate the story. I appreciate you sharing everything that you have shared, your transparency, your vulnerability, of course, again, to you saying yes to this. I'm grateful that you know, his name is Larry, but I call him my Bill. And my brother in love. So if you want to know what Bill stands for, he doesn't have an alter ego, but Bill is short for my brother in love. So, but I love y'all dearly. So I'm so glad that even he was open to you coming, because again, I know you shared with
You
him
can
about
tell them.
coming. Right. I know you
Like,
shared
I'm
with
gonna talk
him.
about us a little
Right.
bit.
I'm gonna go in there and tell a little bit about business, sir. But I thank you for, the transparency, for being open. I know that this is going to bless somebody else. And like you said, God is doing, He has done something new in your marriage. He's going to continue to do new and great things in your marriage. You're going to see it live out. And you and Larry, you're going to see the fruit of your hard work and your prayers live out and be manifested through my nieces and nephews. So it's all coming together full circle. Until that lady that is watching, like she said, keep moving. Keep moving. So
Keep moving.
thank you, Deirdre, for
You're
joining in.
welcome.
Thank you, everybody else, for watching. And until the next time, just, be safe, be encouraged. But just remember that you're not in this thing by yourself.
Every amen feels like open doors, heaven in a